Good evening, everybody. My name's Amy Bloom, and I'm here on behalf of the Center for the Study of Citizenship to engage some members of your community in what we call at the Center a citizen dialogue. I will be facilitating the question, how can Bloomfield Hills schools meet the educational needs of our community while keeping our community safe? Before I begin, I would like to share a few words with participants and our audience who are watching this event. I think most of us can agree that our approach to civil discourse is in need of attention. People tend to either talk past one another, argue, or choose not to engage with those who may have a different perspective. We even have trouble agreeing about the facts. We have ended up living, thinking, speaking, and acting in our own bubbles, sometimes unintentionally and unwittingly. If we can't listen to those with a different perspective, we have no chance in fashioning solutions we all can live with. Tonight's objective is aimed at addressing this problem. The goal of the event is to model civic and civic discourse. To that end, the district has selected several participants with diverse perspectives to participate. We need to acknowledge, however, that the scope of the perspectives is necessarily limited by the small size of this group in the conversation. The citizen dialogue format provides a way to dig into an issue that might divide us. And I want to thank the dialogue participants in advance for being willing to share their own perspectives on this issue. You are entering a brave space. I think we can all agree that all of our lives have been affected by COVID-19. Last year, Bloomfield Hills and Birmingham Public Schools were two Oakland County school districts that brought a team to the Institute for Strengthening Community, a signature capacity building program of the Center for the Study of Citizenship at Wayne State. COVID-19 cut the Institute short, surprise. The center is thrilled, though, to support the district's ongoing effort at building a stronger community through research-based approaches, such as the citizen dialogue, which we are modeling tonight. Let's be clear. As community members, we come together for common purposes, but we do not live common lives. By using diverse opinions to craft solutions we all can live with, we can leverage our collective experiences for the good of the community we share. I'm a teacher. I've always been a teacher. I'm a teacher at heart. And I say this to call your attention to something. Both administrative and teaching certificates in Michigan contain the same code of ethics. These are the ethical standards for the profession. They are as follows: service towards the common good, mutual respect, equity, diversity, and truth and honesty. Tonight's focus is on listening and learning, even for our participants. You will see that most of their time will be spent this way. Join us as they bring their personal expertise developed through their life experiences to think about tonight's topic. So let's begin with the procedures of the citizen dialogues and the ground rules. This is a structured conversation designed to peel away layers in order to address the deeper issues that underlie a problem. There will be several rounds in which each participant has an opportunity to talk. Each round has a time limit, which I will share with each question. I will start each round with a different person each time. So, Julie, if you will be so kind to share the ground rules on a slide. Thank you. So here are the norms for tonight. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. We want to make sure everyone's voice is heard, so one mic at a time or one speaker at a time. I like to say everybody should participate in the conversation, but know that you can pass if you so feel like it. Speak from your own experience instead of generalizing. We recognize that we only have 8 perspectives at the table, and your perspective as participants is unique only to you. So we ask that some of you are wearing different hats as parents and people in the district. So we ask that you clarify as you're making sense of the question and giving your answer what perspective you're speaking from, but it should be from your own experience. I ask that you challenge the idea, not the person, and that you stay on task and on topic. I'm in charge at the time. And then finally, be courteous, kind, and thoughtful as we move through these. Can we all agree to these norms? Great. Before we go on, I have a quick question. Are there any of these rules you think would be difficult to follow? If so, pop an answer in the chat. Feel free to raise a concern if you think like, oh, I might not be able to. That one's going to be hard for me. And we can collectively brainstorm what we can do. Seeing nothing in the chat, I'm going to move on. I want to acknowledge that as others talk, it might cause you to think of something you want to say. Please write down your thoughts so it can be addressed later. When each person has the floor, they have the floor. You will have a chance to share what you thought of after everyone at the table has participated in that round. You will have the opportunity to weave it into your next opportunity to speak. So let's start the dialogue. How can Bloomfield Hills schools meet the schooling needs of our community while keeping our community safe? I want to anchor this by sharing some facts for our conversation. So Julie, can you share the timeline of events for us? And what you see here is a list of actions that happened with a timeline, just to ground our discussion today. So, Julie, if you don't mind keeping that up while we are discussing, that would be great. Okay, so we're going to start with the first question, and Lisa has popped it into the chat, and I am going to keep time. So bear with me while I find my timer, which I should have had open. Okay. So you guys, did you see the question in the chat? I hope you're looking. So this is your time to start thinking about it. And you will have a minute, 30 seconds. I'm sorry, you'll have a minute to answer this first question. Are we ready? Thumbs up, ready to go? Here we go. So the first question is, who are you? What's your name and connection with the district? And how has the district's response to COVID-19 affected you? So we're going to start with Aaron. And it is, you are, like, everybody gets to be in the hot seat. This is the thing.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to start. It is a minute, 30 seconds. You have to give us a little bit about your background, so I will begin. And you will hear my alarm go off, and that signals to wrap up your conversation. If you're in the middle of a thought, we ask for all of the panelists, you all can finish your thought, but bear in mind, we have a time limit for this program. Okay, begin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Parrish. I am a district parent, a full-time working mom. For reference, I have 2 children who are at the elementary school age. They're in 1st and 3rd grade, and they attend Conant Elementary. So my perspective is that from a district parent with young children in the district. How has the district's response to COVID-19 affected me? Wow, that's a big question, and it's affected me in a lot of different ways. I think for our family personally, the biggest concern and issue has been a disruption to our work schedules. We are a two working family household. And so in March, when school first shut down, I had to cut back on the number of hours I was working to support my children with the continuous learning plan. And as time has gone on, we opted and chose for the hybrid option or the in-person option that started as hybrid, distance, then hybrid, and now back to distance. And that has, it's caused some confusion and some trouble with our work schedules and everybody's family schedule. I think everybody has been affected by this. Personally, I've had to, reschedule meetings and do that. But that's really from my perspective. I would say overall, my kids have been happy, healthy, and calm through the entire process and have been able to adjust pretty well to the situation.
Did you hear the buzzer go off?
I did.
Sorry, it was really obnoxious, and I'm glad you finished because I was technologically challenged in trying to shut off my timer, so I apologize. Okay, so thank you for sharing that, Erin. Paul, you're up next.
Okay, so my name is Paul Collins. I'm currently president of the school board. I have two children. One's a junior at Duke University. One's a senior in the high school right now. So in terms of, the district response to COVID-19, it really hasn't really impacted my students. My daughter, I leave it up to her in terms of what she decides to do. She went to school for a couple of days and then, stopped going, not because of safety reasons, just because it was more convenient, probably to do a lot of the work from home. But the real impact has been the community reaching out in terms of the people who have been impacted. As Erin indicated, a lot of people have been impacted by the decision, whether it's working parents or they have students at home, special needs, or just in terms of what it's doing to a lot of the students in our community in terms of social isolation, in terms of depression. So, as a board member, we get a significant amount of emails and correspondence, people reaching out, indicating how much it's impacted them. And that does take its toll on me and my role as being on the board, just seeing a lot of families breaking up, basically family breakdowns happening, things that are impacting students all across the district, and it's taken its toll on me.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, next we have Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Baker. I am a parent of 4 children in the district. I have a kindergartner, a second grader, a 5th grader, and an 8th grader. So the district response to COVID has affected me a lot in terms of, like Erin, I'm a working mom, so I have a full-time job. My husband has a full-time job. So trying to balance that with the constantly changing schedules of the 4 kids, has been very challenging. They're doing pretty well with it. I don't have any special needs kids, so it's not been as hard as I think maybe for some other people. But just trying to juggle, not being sure, the uncertainty of what's going to happen next, and trying to figure out how to make that work with work schedules. It's just difficult.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, and next we have Superintendent Watson. So if you want to begin.
Sure. So good evening. I'm Pat Watson, Superintendent of Schools. As far as my response to the question, as far as how has COVID-19 affected me, I pretty much think about COVID 24/7. I'm reading journals that,
We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is that a little bit better? So literally, I think about COVID nonstop. So from the journals I'm reading to the research I'm that's really going to need it, and it would be very beneficial right now. So it impacts every waking moment of my life.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, next we have Kim.
Good evening. I'm Kim Costas. I have 2 boys in the district that attend East Hills in 4th and 5th grade. I've been thinking long and hard about how COVID has affected our family, and I can say without hesitation that it's touched every life, the way I see my kids thinking of themselves to some extent. It's really touched their learning, how they engage with their teachers and their classmates, and the confusion they may feel in finishing an assignment but not submitting it properly, or all of those other skills that they need to function in the online world. In addition, there's some special needs and special education services that my children do receive, and that's been also challenging through this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next we have Margaret.
Hi, my name is Margaret Schultz. I'm the Director of Instructional Equity here in Bloomfield Hills, and also had 2 4-year-old boys, twins, enrolled in Fox Hills last year, but it kind of ties into the question. My boys are not enrolled this year. We did pull them out because I was nervous about the instability and kind of the roller coaster of in and out for them, because I have one child who really struggles with transitions, and particularly big ones. And so I was really nervous about this year with our response to COVID. And so, so I have them kind of in a different situation. As an employee, I just think I don't live and breathe it in the way that Pat does, but a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of a crazily increased workload, while also for most of this time having my children at home, has been hard to manage, and feeling like I'm really not doing anyone justice in what I do. So that impact is really hard for me personally. But I think I understand, like, it's easy for me to see that so everyone cares about their kids in the same way that I do, right? And like that's where everything's coming from. And I want people to feel good about what's happening with their kids, and I think that's where the sleeplessness comes in, because I know it's really hard. Everything's really hard right now. So
Thank you. I didn't unmute, Margaret. I didn't unmute and the alarm went off.
good.
So thank you. Sorry to interrupt your sentence. It's better when it's the clock and not me cutting somebody off. Okay, Jennifer, we're going to turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Cook. I'm a Board of Education trustee. I'm also the mother of 2 students in the district in high school. I am a single mother and I work full time. So on the family level, it's definitely impacted the family. I think I see my kids a lot less, even though they chose to go back hybrid. They are basically holed up in their rooms during the remote phase and the days they chose not to go in. And they don't even emerge when the school day is over. So their extracurriculars have been severely curtailed. And I think that's when we had a lot of our best quality time, was driving here and there. And without doing that, even though we're in the same house, I feel like we have a lot less contact time. As a board member, I'll just echo what Margaret said. This has affected me very deeply in the form of no sleep, trying to read everything I possibly can to make the best high-level decisions about being open or closed to the best of my ability, and really thinking about, what can I look other community members and my closest friends and family and my 2 kids in the face, and feel like I have done right by everybody. Thank you.
That brings us to Renew. Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Renew Zaretsky, and I am a parent of a high schooler and a middle schooler at Bloomfield Hills Middle, an 8th grader and a 10th grader. And I volunteer for the PTO and for the Bloomfield Hills Schools Foundation, and I also work about part-time, about half-time. So the way that the district's response has affected me is simply to make me miss time. And I had a fair amount and I don't anymore. It's also made me appreciate even more what a teacher does every day. I have told my kids there's a reason I didn't grow up to be a teacher, and they see why maybe every day because I'm not the best, or I try my best. So everything about this whole situation makes me feel unsure about every decision I make. My kids are in hybrid. They miss going to school. They didn't like going to school because of the restrictions. So nobody's happy. So that's something that is difficult, but it's common, which makes me feel better, oddly.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think we got everybody in round one. That wasn't so bad, was it? So we just ask that you talk from your own perspective, but I don't know that we'll have an answer tomorrow, but, or tonight, I should say, but let's start picking this issue apart. The issue of how do we do schooling in the era of COVID while keeping our community safe. So the next question, and we're going to pop it in the chat, is what is one question this issue raises for you? What is one question this issue raises for you? And I'm going to give you a minute to think about this, because I know personally that the question an issue raises for me changes depending on what happened to me that day or 5 minutes beforehand. So give yourself some time to think about this. What is a question that this issue of schooling in an era of COVID and trying to keep the broader community, our kids safe, and their educational needs raises for you? And this time we're gonna start with Paul. So Paul, when you're ready, you will have a minute to answer this. Let me just set my time. Okay, so you tell me the question this raises. Go ahead.
So question this raises for me is if, and this is, maybe it's just my opinion, is if the safest place during the pandemic, from what I've been seeing out there, is in fact the school itself, because of all the precautions that Pat and his team has put in place, whether it's a school or a co-curricular or a sports activity, then why aren't we open for school?
Okay, thank you. The next person that gets to raise a question about this issue is Lindsay.
My question is that this raises for me is how, when I see such divided opinions and kind of people talking over each other and not seeing the other side, how do we get to a place of agreement, or a place of where we can solve the problem when we seem to be so divided.
Thank you. And the next person we're going to ask to hear from is Pat Watson.
It's kind of funny you should ask that question. It's the question I spent a lot of time actually thinking about this weekend. And to me, it's like, what are the data points that matter the most? Is it the case rate? Is it percent positive? Is it ICU. When I look at how many cases we had in Oakland County in the last information received from Oakland County Health Department, 3,786 cases. All right, so I broke it down this weekend. In the age group 5 to 9, there were 74 cases, or 1.9% of the cases were in elementary level students. So 74 out of the 3,786 were in elementary students. Is that a metric we should be looking at? What does that mean? And if I break it down, age 5 to 18, it's about 11% of the cases, which means almost 90% of the cases are those people that are adults. What does that mean? And so for me, trying to find sense within all the numbers of what the numbers really mean, what really matters, and what equals safe when it comes to a threshold and what equals unsafe.
Thank you, Pat. Next, we'll hear from Kim.
Is it really just one question? Because I have a bunch that go through my head all at the same time. But essentially, for me, it's a very high level question. It's what is our priority as a society, as a community, as a district? What is the goal? And I think the ultimate goal is to provide access to education for the greatest number of kids. And in order to do that, we have to get through and understand what is that priority. It's hard to see other places open. It's hard to see other districts open. It's hard to drive by, a place that isn't that important and know that school isn't there for kids that really need it. So what is our priority and how can we get there is essentially my question.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Margaret.
Hi. My question is, how do we take care of one another and our community, regardless of the way that our children are receiving their learning? And not that that method is not extremely important, and I'm thankful to not be the one ultimately making the decision, but also I think it's really important that, especially when everything is so hard right now, that we take care of each other, and sometimes I struggle to see the way to do that.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Jennifer.
So I think a lot about how do we navigate a situation where there seems to be competing wants, competing needs, and frankly, competing rights. What is the right and the duty of a school district to provide education versus the right of the community to be disease-free? It's oversimplistic, but that was one of the early iterations of my thought process over the summer. So, or even are they opposed? Or how did America come to a place where one part of the workforce, being the teachers, their interests are pitted against the rest of the workforce? Or is even that the right way to think about it? How do we create solutions when there are opposing rights?
You'd think I would know how to use this thing already. Okay, and Renew, you're next.
Hi again. The one question, I would echo everybody else's question, but what I also want to know is how are we going to be when this is all over? I feel so much witness and experience from others so much anger and frustration and sadness and decisions to leave or decisions to stay. As a parent, I want to be able to tell my kids what this will look like when we're all back together again. And I fear it will be different, but perhaps in a bad way. So I want very much to figure out if we could come together to look and remember that this will be over at some point. We will need to come back together and we need the tools to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And Erin, you get to go last this time.
I think the biggest question this has raised for me is, what is the line between the responsibility of the district to educate children and parents to take personal accountability and responsibility for the all around well-being of their children? It's a question I've searched myself for the answer numerous times over this last 10 months. And I think that before this started, we all took for granted the things that the school district provided to us. I've heard numerous people talking about childcare. That's my first reaction too, in terms of how COVID has affected my family. And I think that we really need to, and the question that raises the most for me is what is the expectation of the school district? What should be in the responsibility of the school district, and what should be in the responsibility of parents? And I think everybody should examine that for themselves, because I personally feel that we've asked the school district to move mountains, and there are so many challenges there, and people should be thinking about personal responsibility as well.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go on to the next one. You guys have raised some great questions. And this next one digs a little deeper, and I'm going to give you a minute to think about it because it's a hard one. What is one assumption you think underlies this issue? And it could be an assumption that you're making, or it can be an assumption you perceive someone else to make. So we want to just kind of get those assumptions out on the table. We're not saying that these are right or wrong. These are assumptions. So what is one assumption you think underlies this? And we are going to start with Lindsay, and the question is now in the chat for you. So Lindsay, you're going to have a minute to answer this. So begin.
Hard one to start off with. An assumption that underlies the issue. I think back to my question about what divides us. I think there's a lot of assumptions people are making about what the other side thinks, or what their beliefs are, or what they care about, and I think it causes, without people listening, it just causes more divide. So one particular assumption I feel like I get as somebody who wants their kids in school full time, thinks that faith is that I don't care about the teachers, or don't care about the broader community, or that I'm want to put other people at risk just so that my kids can go to school full time. But I think there's a struggle with people making assumptions about what other people are thinking. And I think it leads to more divide, and hopefully something good this conversation will help uncover this.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go to Superintendent Watson.
I'm not really sure. I think one assumption that is out there is that somewhere somebody else has definitely got it figured out, and they're doing it so much better. United States, internationally. Everyone's searching for what the next thing is. As a new superintendent, when this first started, and even in this fall, I'd reach out to people all over and say, well, what do you think? The response was, we don't know. What do you think? I said, well, I'm kind of new. They're like, we're all new to this, and we don't have an answer. So we'd love to hear what you have to share as well. So I think that's one assumption, that everywhere else someone has it figured out. I know I was at a recent meeting, and one superintendent said, I want to thank each and every one of you for doing it better than I'm doing it. At least that's what all the emails are telling me. And, everyone kind of chuckled and said, yeah, we all get the same emails. We know what you're talking about.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Kim.
I mean, I definitely echo Mr. Watson and Lindsay's assumption. Those are both two things that I was always on my mind. For me, I think people assume that the school district has the know-with-all to handle all of these complex issues. There's people, and I think this at home, it seems so simple, like, why haven't you thought of this? And why can't, you can't adjust your workforce this way? And it seems so easy in my mind, and I'm assuming that the district has the ability to troubleshoot and has the skill set. And this takes complex thinking to get through. It's so multifaceted and it handles things that schools have never touched. I mean, there's an entity committed to public health and safety. And we've sort of had, or the district has sort of had to recreate that to make sense and to make sure that kids get an education through all of this. So to me, that's that complications and assuming that the district knows.
Thank you. Okay, next would be Margaret.
I think the assumption, and this is maybe more of an assumption just that I have, but I think helps me kind of get through tough times, is that every single person, every parent, every caregiver, every teacher, every administrator wants what is best for our kids and wants what is best for our students. And every time we sit down at a table to talk and every time we have a conversation, that's what we're coming with. And we may have different ideas of how to get there, but we're all coming with love for our kids, for every single one of them. And I think maybe that assumption isn't always out there enough, and so I try to have that entering into every conversation.
Thank you. Next is Jennifer.
Okay, apologize. I'm going to read this because I prepared this one. I think the one of the big assumptions I run into, and I have no idea as to its veracity, I think it's just something I think about, is that our young people are in this period of irrevocable imprinting. In other words, that any delay of practicing a conventional school model is having permanent deleterious effects on learning, and more importantly, the ability to learn, psychological development, mental health, and really their ultimate success in life. There is so much fear and so much urgency about getting it done in the short term. And I think that is a big underlying assumption of that basically that what's happening now will not self out for the young people.
Thank you. I changed the noise. Could you tell? Maybe that's a little softer on the ears. The other one was to wake me up so you can understand the screeching. I'm a heavy sleeper. Okay, so we are going to go to Renew next.
Hi, maybe the benefit of going at the end is I really do echo a lot of what people are saying, but I also think one assumption that I've noted is that a hesitance or reluctance to return, or a concern about the risk of COVID, has something to do with a fear of mortality. And for me, it's really all I think about is when do I get to see my parents? And that drives every decision I make. And I put all my efforts into keeping my kids safe if they go in person at hybrid, and I limit everything else. I mean, the reasons we make our decisions are so personal and farther reaching maybe than we all give ourselves credit for. So I think the big assumption is that we are like everybody else, but we're not.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next is Erin.
I think the big underlying assumption is that life will be the same. Life should be the same as it was before. And I think that this, also builds upon what Jennifer said, which is life isn't the same. You know, my kids, when they were in school, were going to school in masks and weren't able to hug their teachers or their friends. And this is a reality that I think that we all need to face. Life isn't the same, and it can't be the same. And I think that people need to come to an understanding that this isn't, you know, going to permanently change the course of their children's lives if, you know, they're not where they should be at a certain grade level. And I think we need to be giving everybody some grace, ourselves, the administrators, teachers, and coming to grips with the fact that life will not be the same and cannot be the same for a while.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move to Paul.
The assumption, I think getting back to my question I had earlier is we're assuming that if kids are not in school and wherever they are somewhere else, they're a lot safer from getting COVID than the protocols we have in school. I think that's an incorrect assumption. I think there's a better chance of students in our community being more at risk if we don't put them in the environment that we set up with all these safety precautions, wearing masks, 6 feet, and everything, both from a school and a co-curricular. I think the assumption that we're preventing outbreak, from taking them away from school, I think that's an inaccurate assumption.
Thank you. And next is Lindsay.
I started it. Go
Good.
again.
See how good I am? I'm back to 0, right? So very right. You are on number 3. So this next one is rather long. So I have a little statement I want to make before, and I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think about it, and you'll have a minute to answer. Okay. So we know the critical importance of our kids connecting socially, and that social emotional well-being provides the foundation for optimal academic learning. What are some ways adults can support or help students stay connected socially? So what are some ways adults can support or help students stay connected socially? And the first person that we're going to call on to answer is none other than the superintendent.
So to me, it kind of depends on the age group, but regardless, whether it's in person, if there's that opportunity, or virtually, just giving students the opportunity to engage in extracurricular activities or things they might have an interest in. So if it has to be virtual, then so be it. But if it can be done in person and it's safe and everyone's wearing a mask and you're at least 6 feet apart, those social, opportunities for students are huge. We know based on the data coming out the better it's going to be. They have to have something to look forward to. Oh, I cut out again?
Yeah, you cut out. So I
I
think we got the gist.
We caught having something to look forward to. Having something to.
Thanks.
Okay, so next is Kim to answer that question. What are some ways adults can support or help students stay socially connected?
Well, I think getting them back in the building as quickly as possible obviously gives them that social element. And yes, they are wearing masks and their distance, but I'll tell you, my kids come in the car and they are the happiest when they have that opportunity to interact with their friends and their teachers. In addition, I think there's some opportunities, obviously, with clubs, even at the elementary school level. And I know all of our schools have opportunities for the younger kids to get involved as well. I know I had conversation recently with someone on this panel about even clubs in the middle school, of potentially opening them up so that 8th graders in BH could work with kids at East Hills and get to know each other a little bit better. Someone reminded me that 8th graders don't want to sign up for clubs. I'm not the cool mom, but I'm assuming that we could work together. Also, in terms of the virtual kids and the kids that are in person, field trips, the farm and the nature center, which we hear a lot about. I know the Bloomfield virtual students were able to get there, and hopefully the kids who are now, I think they're called distance learners now, can also get a chance to get out to the farm and nature center.
Thank you. Thank you. Margaret.
Yeah, I already echo kind of what was said in terms of clubs, what helping kids think of, what are some safe socially distanced ways to get together. I know some of our teachers, particularly at the elementary school, were doing kind of like play dates. Like if they had a 15-minute break, we're doing some play dates with kids. So I think ideas like that are really important. I know I'll speak for myself personally with my own children. We found another family or two other families that we feel really comfortable with the way that they are managing COVID within their households. And so we have some play dates with them to make sure that our kids are having social time, because at 4 years old, it is critical to be interacting with other children. And so I think those are some ways to find families that you can work with.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Yeah, everything, what everyone has said, as much as kids can be outside, even through the winter, all bundled up. I'm from Syracuse, so don't see that as much of an obstacle. I do believe that being in school is important. And my own two high schoolers, maybe they're jaded and cynical. I don't think I could get them to sign up for like a virtual just a virtual community, a virtual hangout. But I think that would be a great thing to form such groups as you go down in age, so you have your school friends during the day, whether that's in person or remote. And then you have sort of a buddy group for after school. Lisa and I talked extensively when this all started about doing whatever out of the box, cooking classes, how to change oil in a car, like things that could be seen as real life academics, but could also be seen as a little bit of a break and a social time for kids within the confines of the school district day.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, after Jennifer, we have Renu.
Hi. I had the benefit of having two kids that were in sports through cross country, where your point is to keep your distance from people. So that was good. And baseball, not through the school, but and that was really beneficial to them. But something else that strikes me that's just dovetailing off of what everybody else is saying is something I've noticed is service opportunities. And it doesn't have to be a specific club or something specifically academic, but I saw somebody wanted to get people together to pack food downtown at Thanksgiving, or organize things where young kids, middle school kids, high school kids can come together in groups to do service. That might be something that could help. And it could be parents as well as the district staff that are helping facilitate that.
Thank you. Okay, right on the buzzer. I didn't even have to let it go. Okay, we're going to go back up to Aaron.
I'm going to sound like a broken record because I think a lot of this has been covered. My children had the opportunity to play sports in the fall. They played soccer, masked, and in a very safe way. I think that was important for them. I also, one thing that has been mentioned that I know has been very successful for my children is to video chat with their friends. And on one hand, I hate that most days of the week because it's another electronic device. But, I can tell you that, my children connect with their friends that way. It's a meaningful way that they connect. I don't know if anybody who has a third grader knows anything about Beyblades, but My son and his friend will set up entire battles between each other with their Beyblades and play virtually. So they still have the same kind of banter back and forth and some of those social interactions, even if it isn't in person. So I think encouraging that and encouraging them to stay connected and talk to their friends.
Thank you. Let's see, you beat it too. Okay, we are off to Paul. Ways that kids can stay connected.
I think reiterating what everyone said, I think co-curriculars, sports, and those activities in the fall, even with us going to a hybrid and me seeing, all the events that were going on in the high school, whether it was the Shakespeare in Love play, the marching band, cross country, swim and dive, all those events that are going on. It just doesn't just mean a lot to the students. It means a lot to the families as well. To go out there and watch their students interact with their, other peers, I think it's important. I think regardless of whatever happens in terms of inside the classroom, and I agree with Kim, being inside the classroom and whether it's social distance with a mask, that still means a lot to the students. But at a minimum, these co-curriculars, help them get through, the fall as bad as it is out there with everything going on with COVID.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, and Lindsay.
Going last on this one, I'm going to have a lot of the same things to say as what everybody else has already said. But, obviously getting the kids back in school, the ideal to be able to get them in, safe ways to be able to socially interact with their peers. But in the meantime, I think the extracurricular activities, the sports that they can do safely, being outside with other neighborhood kids that they can play with. But whatever we can do to kind of keep the connections with their friends and in a safe way that we can.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. So we are now on question 5. What are some ways the district can demonstrate respect for the diversity of opinions on this issue? What are some ways the district can demonstrate respect for the diversity of opinions on this issue? So we're going to start this one for up to a minute, and we are going to start it with Kim.
Oh boy. Before I answer the question, I did just want to address one thing that I was thinking about is we were talking about the long-term effects of this on kids. I think looking at it from a very narrow lens, that there are kids that are currently experiencing harm from not being in school, and whether that's not receiving a service that they are, used to or entitled to, or if it's learning loss, those are happening to students right now. So we don't have to look too far down the line. In terms of diversity of opinions, I think the first thing would be to potentially address some of the comments that are made during our board meetings. This is an unusual time, and how we engage with the decision makers has completely been changed. So when someone writes a comment to a board member, I think they're anticipating a response. And I understand that's not what it's for, but because there isn't a mechanism within the board, I think something else needs to happen in the district. Someone at an administrative level, a decision maker, needs to be maintaining these comments and asking for responses, or maintaining responses and updates.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Margaret, you are next.
I think that's a good question. I almost feel like in this position, I really just want to hear what everyone else has to say. But I do think what we're engaging in right now is one way. So I'm proud of us for taking this first step, and I hope that there can be more dialogue that's handled kind of in this proactive and allowing every voice process. So I'm thankful for this process and everyone willing to be here. I think this is one way.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to Jennifer.
Yeah, I agree. This is one excellent way, and to keep having forums like this. I think we have to keep talking and we have to keep listening, right? I think we acknowledged earlier in the evening, I think it was Superintendent Watson who sort of a nod to the everyone's got it better than I do. Somebody else is getting what I don't have. I think we really have to have that commonality that every single person is mad and scared, and does not know what is going to happen next, either for themselves, for their children. We all are feeling that as human beings. And I think that we should keep dialoguing about that. And, it's a fine line between many voices in the room and chaos when you're trying to engage in an organized activity like education. But we have such a fabulous wealth of hearts and minds in our community. We have to mine more creative solutions from our community members as they have them. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Renew.
I've watched every board meeting and I've read all sorts of things on all sorts of platforms, and I do feel the district has done a great job respecting the diversity of opinions on this issue. This type of dialogue is a great step. It's limited though. I don't know how difficult it would be for us to have a great big outdoor town hall, not a board of education meeting, so to speak, but I feel it is it's too easy to veer into less than friendly conversation when we are divided by a screen. And even if we were outside somehow looking each other one in face to face, might be easier to respect that diversity of opinion.
Thank you. Erin.
I think Kim really touched on some of the things for me that have come to mind and how we can respect diversity. I think there needs to be a broader dialogue with the community about the difference of opinions about how this should be handled by the district. And what I mean by that is that I don't mean that it should necessarily sway or change the decisions the district is making, but I think on a larger level that there needs to be an acknowledgement of some of these higher level concerns that are brought to the district through public comment. And I have to believe that the district responds to parents on a one-on-one basis, but unless that message is sent out and reaches a broader audience, I think people largely feel unheard. There may be 10 people who have the same issue with the same thing, and you respond to one of them and the other 9 don't reach out. So you have to find a way to respond to these broader ideas and concerns from the community in a way that reaches a larger audience.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, I think I want to, give credit to Pat and his team in terms of so differences of opinion. So you look at what the team has done, the whole 6 through 12 remoting in, being virtual. I know Pat and his team work with the teachers to be able to provide that. We provided a Bloomfield virtual option for K through 5 if they wanted to stay home. I know the team worked again around the clock to provide, in-person learning for those that wanted to. First, they had a plan for if we were going to go for everyone, and then we went hybrid. I know, him and whether it's working with the team for clubs and co-curriculars, help set that up. So I think that they're recognizing and they're working around the clock to recognize everyone's diverse opinion and try to do everything that they can to give everyone as much options as possible.
Thank you. Okay, and we have Lindsay.
Okay, Erin kind of covered the words right out of my mouth. I think people, in terms of respecting their opinions, just want to feel heard, want to have their opinions acknowledged, even if they're things that can't be fixed. It's just clear communication as to why it can't be fixed, and just to know that your concerns are being heard, even if they maybe can't be fixed. So I think some kind of town hall, some kind of way to be able to have communication both ways. I know, the district's great at responding to people, individually, but just to be able to clear up maybe misunderstandings, or so people, don't start to make assumptions about what you think can be done, and there may be just things behind the scenes that you aren't aware of as to why it can't be done, but it helps, I think clear up those misunderstandings and help people feel like their voices matter in the issue.
Perfect timing on that, Lindsay. Okay, we're going to move it over to Pat.
So a lot of what everyone said, but I'd rather share hopes that really has to do with this. And it reads like this: listen with curiosity, speak with honesty, act with integrity. The greatest problem with communication is we don't listen to understand. We listen to reply. When we listen with curiosity, we don't listen with the intent to reply. We listen for what's behind the words. That sums up how I feel. That's it, Amy.
Okay. I couldn't hear you.
That's the quote.
That's the quote. Love the quote. Okay. All right. For our sixth question, we're going to go to Renew. You're going to start this round. And this is see, we have to turn off the timer. This is the final round of this, and then we're going to spend a few minutes reflecting. Okay. So the question, and I'll give you a couple seconds to think about it, 30 seconds to think about it. You have up to a minute to answer. What are some ways we can work together that honors parents' choices about their child's schooling while keeping students, staff, and the broader community safe? So now this question is really picking your brain. In other words, what's an idea? What's something we can do that honors the parents' choices about their child's schooling and attends to the safety of students, staff, and the broader community? Be a minute to think. And Renew, whenever you're ready to start, I'll start the timer.
Okay, I feel like the late Alex Trebek would be playing that music for me for the time here. I feel to honor parents' choices if they want to do remote or if we're able to go back to hybrid face-to-face. I feel one thing that we could do to honor those choices is to make them easier to execute. Because I'm confident that the district isn't going to do anything to put our kids at excessive risk. We're going to have to manage the risk. But what can the district and what can parents do to help each other manage whatever choice it is, whether it's help on how to manage your child's schooling at home or help on how to manage their schooling in a hybrid situation where they can't really sit with a child and work together at the same table, things like that. I feel like parents just are, well, maybe it's just me, but kind of floating and needing sometimes to know that somebody else can help.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to Jennifer.
Yeah, so I'm not really going to address the safety thing because I think everybody knows that we're, really trying to stay on top of that with continued reading of articles and research and case and fatality and chronic effect data. I think we just need to adopt, again, it's in my mind, it's like this line between everything should be on the table and chaos. But I almost think that we should have a suggestion box, that teachers who are educational experts, that parents who may be university professors or teachers in a different capacity or former teachers, that that we should really entertain novel ideas about how to get all this done, because it's an impossible task, right? So, and I feel that we do try to do that, and that Superintendent Watson has been a consummate listener through all this. So I want to say that. And parents have to be empowered. I can't, if Lindsay or somebody just said it, parents need to know what the educational goals for that grade level year are, specifically, very
Thank
specific,
you.
so that they can
Thank
be
you.
partners. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay. We are going to go to Margaret.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I feel like the answer to this, somebody has like the magic in there. But I think continuing to listen to each other is really important. And continuing to hear and kind of reach across maybe to people that have some different opinions. And I think what a lot of people have brought up today about this idea of being heard, and that is so critical just in terms of us as human beings. And so, how do we meet kind of those basic needs? And I don't know that I have answers, and I wish I did, but that's just what I'm thinking about now, is continuing to listen, continuing to care about everyone's opinions, and showing that in various ways, and probably doing a better job of making sure that people feel heard.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Kim to answer their question. What are some ways we can work together?
You know, I've had such success, and my kids have had such a good experience in hybrid, that let's keep doing whatever we've been doing, quite frankly. I feel like the teachers and the parents and the administrators are working together, and my kids are safe because of the efforts of their teachers and the admins there. If we're looking at some outreach things, I would say maybe just trying to connect parents more. I'm at the elementary, middle school level now, and I miss that element of being able to engage with other parents. If we can, try to give a little bit more opportunity to that, but really just continuing and keeping our kids safe in the classroom when they get there.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Pat Watson.
So this isn't the most popular view, but it is my view. We know in school we have all the safety protocols we possibly can think of. We're actually working with Oakland County Health Division right now to review all of them. Where we need support is what people decide to do when they get home, and their children are at home. The more you can follow those same safety protocols that we have at school at home, even though it's completely inconvenient, the better off we're all going to be. If you watch the highlights of the Notre Dame Clemson football game, the Notre Dame fans, 10,000 whatever, stormed the field. Now Notre Dame University is requiring COVID testing for all the students on there. We have to make, unfortunately, these safety decisions 24/7. They can't just be in school. We know that we're not seeing cases being spread in school, yet we had almost 4,000 cases in Oakland County last week. So where's that happening? It's happening outside of school. And the lower we can get the numbers, the better or higher our odds that everyone's going to be safer and school's back sooner.
Okay, thanks. Lindsay.
I think just continuing to tap into listening to parents and community members about what information they can share, what ideas they can bring, like Jennifer said. If there's some way to encourage parents, I don't know, suggestion box type thing that Jennifer said. I don't. Some way to continually to feel like you have a voice, so that you can share things, and they'll be heard and possibly incorporated into the efforts that the district's putting in. I think in-person school to me is an essential service, and so I think the focus shifting from if we can do it to how we can do it. I think the efforts that the district put in, place when we did have hybrid school, great. I think it kept everybody safe, and I think we can continue.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Paul.
Yeah, I think the one great thing about our community is if there's things that is needed, whether it's, field trips for K through 5 at the farm, a nature center, or co-curricular activities that we're short-staffed, I think all we need to do as a district is ask our community to help, and they will. I mean, I just know even in the last couple of weeks, community members that have the time will step up and help and do whatever is needed to do to make sure that the choices that people want, being in school, as Kim said, for hybrid, virtual and those co-curricular and all those other activities, I think we just need to decide what we need, ask our community, and they'll step up, in order to make this work.
Thank you. Erin.
I think for me, the way that you honor other people's choices about their children is that you understand why they're making those choices. And so I think we've already had mentioned numerous times the idea of listening to other parents. So I hope these other parents on this board don't mind me calling them out, but the 3 other parents on this board have each given me a different perspective about the situation. Lindsay Baker shared with me an economist that she follows that had some really good information and some dashboards that they've been keeping about schools. That's, giving me the perspective of why the kids should be in school. And Kim has shared with me over the last 7 months some challenges that those who have children with special education face and how that's different for them. And Rainu has posted some very thought-provoking, medical journal pieces, giving me a different perspective. So we have to keep learning and listening and understanding perspectives by evaluating data and information for ourselves to really fully comprehend it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask us to take a minute to reflect on our conversation. I would like you to think about 2 things. How did engaging in the citizen dialogue with others change, challenge, or extend your thinking? About the issue and also about each other. So it's kind of like a two-part. How did engaging in this evening's activity change, challenge, or extend your thinking on the issue and about your community members? And I'll pop that in the chat. And as you're thinking about that, let me get this in the chat. What I'm going to, I don't know if I sent it to everybody. Did I send it to everybody? Did you guys see it? No, because I sent it to Vicky all by herself. See how good I am. Let me try again. All right. So what I'd like you to do with this question is pop your answer in the chat. And as they're doing that, for those of you at home, we're allowing them to share their reflections privately, but we will open it up for any of their comments if they want to share them publicly. So this is for the good of the group. So how did engaging in the citizen dialogue, and you folks at home can think about this as well, how did listening to this citizen dialogue change, challenge, or extend your thinking about this issue? and about your community members. So take a minute and reflect on that at home as well. Okay, as they are putting them in the chat, I see some coming in now. I'm going to ask for volunteers. Just raise your hand on the screen so I can see if you want to share yours. Paul, go ahead and share yours.
Yeah, so where's mine up there? Let me go up there in the chat. I just said, I think as a community, we all think we are divided, but we're not. We all want what is best for our students and families. And as heard, as long as we just listen and respect everyone's thought on what everyone's particular situation is for their family and situation, I think we'll be fine.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else want to share their thoughts about the conversation? Renew.
Just in the terms of volunteering, this is all extended my thinking. I'm trying to figure out what more members of a PTO can do to help each other. I'm trying to figure out what more I can do as a friend to parents, because I'm just lucky and I want to figure out how to help other people feel heard and get the support they need.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share theirs? No hand waving. Okay, so Jennifer, did you want to jump in?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to read mine if I can find it here. I just said I have more appreciation of different perspectives, our everybody's ability to discourse calmly, and it's inspired me to want to hear more perspectives, specifically from teachers and from families that are really having a hard time making it all work with school and COVID.
Okay, we'll take one final comment if someone wants to share. Okay. Going once, going twice. Sold. We're moving on. Okay. So we've just completed the citizen dialogue process. I'm glad you guys took some time to reflect. I want to thank you for your time tonight. I'd also like to thank Julie McDaniel and Kelly Carey from Oakland Schools, who helped develop and test this work. The citizen dialogue process is something we've been working on since 2014. And normally we do it with a lot more people than this is just one small group. We usually break people out into small groups to have this kind of conversation. I also want to thank the Bloomfield Hills School Board for being willing to create a space to address one of the biggest challenges facing our country and our community right now. You have really jumped into this brave space. And for the audience out there watching, we hope you've learned a new way to talk and listen. Most of my emphasis is on listen with your neighbors as we face common concerns. So from the Center for the Study of Citizenship, my name's Amy Bloom, and I'm thrilled to have been able to facilitate this for you guys tonight. And I look forward to seeing my my former community members, because my kids went to the school, but I'm not there now. So thank you all for joining us tonight.